Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Candace Owens is trending yet again. It seems as if in recent times, Candace Owens is saying certain things that is really starting to annoy and tick quite a few people off. And I think personally, there are some things that she has said of late that I do not like, I do not agree with, and that is the reason why I am making this video in response to it. Now, if I've said something on this show that you guys disagree with, I would expect the same courtesy. You know, I believe in freedom of speech and being able to criticize one's opinion in a polite and a respectful manner and not spouting hate or not attacking them and doing these low blows because you want clicks. And that's exactly what she did with Dr. Jordan Peterson recently. She went and attacked Jordan Peterson and said that he's losing the majority of his male audience, which is not true. He just hit 8 million people. That's a lot compared to your almost 2 million, Candace. I'm just saying, and people frequently view Jordan Peterson and his interviews. I am one of them, and a lot of other men do as well. So you're trying to grasp at straws, things that are not actually there. And to think that you would do something like that, it just makes me lose respect for you. Not that you really care anyway about my respect for a podcaster or an individual like yourself, but you know, I think we should care about whether or not individuals respect us because it is an indictment on our character. And I think we should be careful of our character and our integrity moving forward. I think if you are a person of good character and good integrity, then that's to be valued above everything else. But what Candace did recently and attacking Jordan Peterson was uncalled for, shouldn't have happened, but for some reason, she decided to do it. But that's not the reason why I've decided to make this video. I've decided to make this video in response to Candace Owens calling Dr. Joseph Mengele the angel of death, the Holocaust experiments that he did. She calls them bizarre propaganda in her latest anti-Semitic scandal. Now, I want to preface this by saying Candace needs to be extremely careful with how she words things and what she says moving forward because she's playing with fire. This is not a threat at all, by the way. I am just saying the facts. The reality of the situation is you have to be extremely careful with what you say online because people can perceive what you've said, they can twist what you've said, and they can make a living hell out of something that you may or may not have said. Now, I watched the video of what Candace Owens actually said. I watched the full video. She's referring to a documentary from the BBC, which, by the way, Candace tells us not to watch or trust the mainstream media, and here she is watching a documentary from the BBC. So if you want to talk about actual propaganda, Candace, look at the propaganda from the BBC. But anyway, I'm using your own logic in that particular case. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy in that department and that field, okay? You're encouraging people to watch a one-sided documentary. Now, the thing is, there is a lot of anti-Semitism going on in the West, here in Australia, Canada, America, especially. Even like when I was running the Gold Coast Marathon, for goodness sake, you had Palestinian flags being flown on the course. And I'm going, what in the world? This is not called for at all. At all. And you have all these people on Twitter, for example. A lot of the Nazis are starting to show their true colors. A lot of the anti-Semitism is rife over on Twitter and abroad. Like, it is really concerning to see a lot of this hatred towards a particular group of people that have already been through enough. But alas, they're hated so much. And Candace Owens is feeding into lots of lies and lots of conspiracy theories which when you get down to the Holocaust and you start calling some of the experiments that went on there bizarre propaganda instruments or something along those lines, you need help, because this is not something that happened in the 1800s or in Rome. Although if you read the Fox's Book of Martyrs, thousands, if not millions of Christians were actually murdered in the Colosseum in horrific ways. So if you want to talk about an actual Holocaust, which Candace often alludes to about the Christian Holocaust that's going on in the world, yeah, you read about what happened to the Christians all the way back then. Now, we have secondary sources, in some cases primary sources, to allude to what happened to the Christians back in ancient Rome. And it's not like in 1940 to 45, it's not as if we had no primary sources. We, in fact, had a lot of primary sources, many of which are still alive to this day to recount what actually took place. German, Jew, doesn't matter. The fact is, they are both recounting the horrible events to actually prove what went on, that there was an actual Holocaust. Not just that, we have actual evidence, physical evidence. You want to go to Auschwitz, for goodness sake, and see for yourself, Candace, the realities that took place. Do you want to interview Holocaust survivors? Oh, no, more than likely won't do that. I've done that. I've interviewed 2 of them. I've heard their stories. It's heartbreaking. I wanted to interview a 3rd, but sadly he tragically passed away before I got a chance to actually interview him. The thing is, I hate it when people deny the Holocaust even happened. I hate the fact that you got people out there like Nick Fuentes, who is such an anti-Semite, it's not even funny. And a lot of people actually rally behind him. And Candace Owens is feeding into this narrative. Use your brain, Candace. Look at actual historical evidence. Listen to the accounts. Don't just focus on one particular side, which is what you are actually doing. I've focused on both sides of the aisle. I have listened to the Germans. I have listened to the Jews. Both recount what took place. It's horrific. And what they actually did to the kids was barbaric. But according to Candace Owens, she doesn't seem to think or believe that the experiments that took place to the young kids were real. Well, guess what, Candace? They were real. They did happen, and we have actual evidence to prove that they did happen. Not just the stories of people that watched it take place, but we have actual bodies, bones. We have photographs. Have you been to a Holocaust museum? I don't think she has. Because if she had have walked into a Holocaust museum and seen firsthand, you wouldn't be saying, oh, this is a bizarre propaganda, or the experiments that took place. Bizarre propaganda from Joseph Mengele. The guy was a nut. There's a reason why they call him the angel of death. There's a reason, Candace. Oh, do you think it's, his experiments were maybe a little bit bizarre, but it's just propaganda. What's next? Are you going to start denying that the actual Holocaust happened, like a lot of other people on the internet? Or are you going to start saying that the Jews are behind, or the Jews were behind the Holocaust? Or are you going to start saying things that no person should ever say?
Innocent people. Candace, come on. That's the difference. They experimented on twins. I mean, some of the stories, by the way, sound completely absurd. I'm like, the idea that they just like cut a human up and then sewed them back together. Why would you do that? Literally, even if you're the most evil person in the world, that's a tremendous waste of time and supplies. Just slice a person in half and sew them together. That just sounds like bizarre propaganda.
You may think that it sounds like bizarre propaganda, Candace, but it actually did happen. And for you to say and deny and try and lead other people astray, that's problematic. You need to, again, be very careful with what you say online. I've got to be careful as well. I've got to get my facts straight. I don't want to lead people astray. You shouldn't be leading people astray either. It's not right. Controversial podcaster Candace Owens sparked fresh accusations of anti-Semitism after calling the gruesome medical experiments performed during the Holocaust by notorious Nazi Dr. Joseph Mengele bizarre propaganda. Owens, who parted ways with the Daily Wire earlier this year after reportedly feuding with co-founder Ben Shapiro over Israel and anti-Semitism, launched into her head-scratching tirade during her podcast on Tuesday. The Nazi experimented on innocent people, Owens began. Some of the stories, by the way, sound completely absurd. So you're saying they lied. You're saying that all the photographs and all the actual evidence and all the other eyewitnesses, which I've read countless books, by the way. And have you ever read this book, Candace? Just wondering. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Dr. Viktor Frankl, by the way. Maybe you should read it. Maybe. Might make you change your mind on a few things. Who knows? Then there's quite a few other stories. There's The Gift by Dr. Edith Eger. There's The Happiest Man on Earth by Eddie Jaku, who sadly passed away. There is The Nazis Knew My Name. There is The Daughters of Auschwitz by Tova Friedman, who I had the pleasure of actually interviewing. There are countless stories of the Holocaust. Eyewitness accounts, personal stories. And yet you want to say that some of the stories you've heard are completely absurd. I'd love to hear you say that to an actual Holocaust survivor's face. I wonder how they would respond to you. I wonder. They just cut up a human being and sewed them back together? Yes, they did. They did far worse than that. If you're wondering. Why would you do that? Because Dr. Joseph Mengele was a nutcase. Again, there's a reason why they called him the angel of death. He loved killing people. There are some sick, twisted people out there. And he was one of them. Big time. But according to Candace, all the stories that you hear are absurd. Owens went on to say that literally, even if you're the most evil person in the world, that's tremendous waste of time and supplies. I'm trying to wrap my head around how Candace can actually think this, because she seems like a fairly intelligent woman. Or at least I thought so before. But now I'm starting to really doubt that. I'm starting to really wonder what the hell's happening to her. Has she like blown something? Like first she's talking about science and she's leaving the cult of science. And then now this. I mean, I made a video talking about how science can be a cult of sorts, trying to, I guess, defend her in a way, but now I'm not going to defend her. Now I'm actually sharing the truth. If you want to play with fire, Candace, you're going to get burnt. It's not going to be good, and I hate to see it happen. But don't be like other foolish individuals that believe that the Holocaust didn't happen and all this other stuff that you've been spouting and attack. Stop attacking Jordan Peterson. Stop stooping so low, whether it's for clicks or whatever else. Now, Candace said something on Twitter. She goes, Israel protected Solomon Morel, a man who tortured and murdered German Christians in a concentration camp. Zionists are in overdrive trying to get this episode banned, where I talk about it. Here's a full clip that I don't want you to see. Would be a shame if it went viral. So, full clip. 4-minute clip that you can watch if you want. The reason why this particular episode is so detrimental to Zionism is because they polluted American minds to believe that they must defend Israel out of morality and the evils of the Holocaust. No, it's not just about that. It's about the fact that Israel is our only ally in the Middle East. Or haven't you thought of that? Have you forgotten about that and how important the Middle East actually is? Have you read your Bible? Probably not. Learning about how many people who committed Holocausts and mass murderers were protected by Israel is disruptive to that narrative. Plain and simple. Look, I'm not saying that Israel is spotless and perfect by no stretch of the imagination. But when you come down to things and you start saying that, experiments in the Holocaust and all this sort of stuff is bizarre propaganda, I start to really worry because that's not a good sign. It's really not a good sign. And when you're saying stuff like this, again, it's not a good sign at all. It's like you are going down quite rapidly. Learning about what the Allies did to peaceful German civilians and their children is similarly disruptive to what we have learned in school. Here is the episode in its entirety, which you can watch in your own time if you want. But again, Menace to Mycology says, it also says to stay loyal to God's people in the Bible. Correct. Candace responds, God's people do not lie, deceive, and murder. So it has been very easy for me to call out lies, deception, and murder throughout my entire political career. Well, God's people do lie, they do deceive, and they do murder people. Just so you're wondering. Like, are you saying that you've never lied, Candace? Are you saying that you are a perfect human being because you claim to be a Christian? Where did you get that thought from? I'll never know. I'll never know. This is just really, really sad to actually see. Obviously, Ben Shapiro has criticized what Candace Owens has said, and many, many other people have criticized her, and I'm among them. Anyway, my friends, you guys take care. You be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.